Good morning, everybody, and a warm welcome to Spa-Francorchamps on a beautiful day here in Belgium for day 3, effectively, of the Renault Sport Trophy and the European Le Mans Series event here in Belgium. It's the second race of the weekend for the Renault Sport Trophy cars. We had an action-packed, I think it's fair to say, endurance trophy event yesterday. A huge crash out of Le Source, and we'll tell you more about the drivers involved in just a tick. But after a 20-minute safety car period, we then witnessed a really exciting race with the driver change, and of course that first part of yesterday's race also goes towards the points scoring for the Renault Sport Trophy AM Championship. Fabian Schiller winning the race at half distance, if you like, of the endurance trophy yesterday, so he got 25 points and therefore now leads the AM Championship with 128 points. He leads by 11 over Frank Ruder, his teammate at Marc VDS. We're looking at Christopher Amon, though, who is currently 6th in the AM Championship for Duquesne Engineering. Shared that car yesterday with Robert Kubica, who has an awful lot of fans from particularly his homeland of Poland, and they're in support of Robert. We'll see him in solo driving action during the pro race later on today. Andres Mendez with a new front end for the number 4 car, giving away to the camera there. Qualifying time of 2:16.4. And peering towards the front of the grid, you can see Fabian Schiller's car there just at the front to the right. He will start from pole position alongside Frederick Blomstedt, who is 3rd in the championship on 105 points after finishing 2nd yesterday in the first bit of the race anyway. And then it was a bit of a surprise win for Frederick Blomstedt and his teammate Raoul Owens, because Graham Goodwin, there were various penalties dished out during yesterday's 70-minute race mainly because of track limit issues, but also bits of contact here and there as well. And we hadn't quite twigged at the time that the first car over the line, Peter Schotthorst, was also given a 15-second time penalty, which put him behind the eventual winner, Frederick Blomstedt and Raoul Owens.
It did. It was a topsy-turvy afternoon all round, wasn't it? And it's good to see, frankly, so many of the cars surviving for the race this morning after what was a multiple car accident. Took out 3 cars, another one succumbed to its injuries a little later in the race. But Robert Kubica certainly was very surprised indeed to be on the podium. But Raoul Owens and Fred Blomstedt were utterly amazed to be directed first in front of the cameras for the race winners interview, and then onto the top step of the podium. And that was, as you quite rightly say, Johnny, to do with track limits and some contacts for several cars. So a little bit of tumbling down the order, but some great racing while we had the cars on track. That's unfortunately right at the end of the race accounted for what had been the race leader, Marcus Paltala, getting together with Peter Schotthorst's, it's his cousin, isn't it?
That's right, yeah, Stein
Schotthorst, causing a puncture for the Marc VDS car and dropping it from a podium position back down to 9th, which rather opens up the championship, the endurance championship.
Yes, it does. We'll tell you more about that in just a moment. But as I say, Schiller leads the AM part of the championship, having scored points at half distance in yesterday's race. Frank Ruder in 2nd, Blomstedt 3rd, Miguel Ramos 4th, and Andres Mendez 5th. But I'll remind you that you are permitted 1 drop score. What a fabulous shot that is, by the way, of this wonderful sinuous circuit. What you don't get a reflection of from the aerial shot is quite how up and down it is at ground level, though, as well, particularly the run from the start line for the Renault cars, which is after Le Source, unlike the European Le Mans Series, which start on the traditional the Grand Prix start, if you like. Well, they gridded up these cars in this position, but I believe they will get underway out of the chicane and down towards Le Source, and that is effectively the start and the finish line. Certainly they will race to the line just beyond the chicane and before the source. 1 green flag lap, though, to get these cars up the temperature for the tyres that will need a little bit of heating in them this morning, although it's already 17 degrees Celsius here at Spa and set to peak at something like 20 or 21. So fabulous conditions in late September at the penultimate round of the Renault Sport Trophy. The three cars that were majorly affected by the crash yesterday, the number 1 of Davide Roda and also the number 8 car of Diderik Saitov. Now, I checked in with Marie-Alain of Renault Sport this morning because we know that we heard the news that Diderik Saitov was kept in hospital overnight for observation, but he also had a bit of surgery last night on his back as well. So he's sleeping this morning, recovering well though, and the news is good for Diderik Saitov. It was a big shunt, mainly because, as Graham says, the steering went on his number 8 car. He couldn't affect the line of the car. It clashed with one of the Oregon machines and both hit the wall very heavily. They then came back onto the track and were further collected by Dennis Anderson, who, it's fair to say, didn't come away from it glowing, because he tried to overtake about 6 cars at the first corner and kind of started the whole thing off. Here's the grid though for today's race. Fabian Schiller 2:13.5 starting alongside Fred Blomstedt. That should be a very entertaining race. Miguel Ramos starting 3rd alongside Jelle Bielen, who sadly didn't continue after yesterday's crash either for much longer. Andres Mendez from 5th position in the repaired Oregon team car, the number 4. Christophe Amon for Duquesne Engineering starts 6th ahead of Philippe Bourgeois and Jeroen Schothorst in the number 21 car. Philippe Asbrook in the number 3 R.S. GP machine starts 9th alongside Adalberto Baptista. Good to have Adalberto part of the championship. Carmen Jorda from 11th, Davide Roda in 12th position, having set no time in quali after a spin which accounted for Fran Ruder, who also didn't set a time in qualification yesterday. So the number 15 car starts from 13th position, and it looks like the High Class Racing entered machine, the blue and white car of Dennis Anderson, will start from the back of the field. Yes, there it is, just appearing into view through Campus Corner and behind Fran Ruder. So it'll be 14 cars in total. The number 8 car has not been repaired, and of course we still have a driver in hospital, but as I say, in good health after timely work by the doctors last night. Both drivers involved in the crash were taken to hospital. One was released last night, and as I say, Diderik Saitov kept overnight for some surgery, but all appears to be well.
Another bit of proof of just how safe these cars are. As you say, Johnny, mighty shunt yesterday. Triggered, we think, by Dennis Anderson trying to go up the inside, hitting Jerry Bielen, those two careering across and collecting several other cars. But it was the secondary impact that was the one that took his breath away. But the reality is, yes, we have a driver that's requiring hospital at the moment, but it could have been very different indeed. It was a very big accident.
There's the 16 car of Christophe Amon. He starts alongside Andres Mendez, and it'll be easy to spot Mendez in the Oregon car. Normally those cars are so difficult to tell apart, but it's got a black front for this race. And out of the chicane then come the 14 cars to take part in this sprint race for the AM drivers. We're underway this morning at Belgium and the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. It is side by side between Fred Blomstedt to the right and Fabian Schiller to the left, but Schiller has the inside line for La Source as everyone else got cleanly through that corner. It would appear so. So one hurdle safely negotiated, but we have the run through Eau Rouge to come next, and then Radion, and it's Fabian Schiller with the lead from Frederic Blomstedt. Jelle Bielen's got the jump on Miguel Ramos to take 3rd position. Ramos, the Portuguese, in 4th. A little bit of a gap then back to Christophe Amon, and the 3 Oregon cars are trading paint very nearly. It's just up ahead, Andres Mendez in the car with the black nose, and then side by side just further back, car with the green door mirrors, and just heading through is Baptista behind Davide Rigon. So Adalberto Baptista losing a spot there to Roda, who of course didn't set a qualifying time, so has some work to do in the race. And also Dennis Anderson's on the move in the blue and white car.
4-place grid penalty for Dennis Anderson for his work yesterday. At turn 1, he's trading paint again with one of the Oregon cars as the cars come down towards Speaker's Corner. Great start from Fabian Schiller, nicely controlled line to La Source, kept his head as all around him tried to do better, came out ahead and is beginning, I think, Johnny, to pull away here.
Fran Ruder has gained 3 spots already, just overtaken the number 3 car of Philippe Asbrook, second of the R.S. GP cars. The first of those is second in the sequence, but quite a way back now from Fabian Schiller. This is only the opening lap, remember, and we already have a lead of, what, a second or more back to Fred Blomstedt. That car is carrying a fair bit of weight though, Fabian Schiller, so it will work its tyres a bit more readily than Fred Blomstedt, and maybe Frederick is just biding his time a little bit, knowing that that leading car, the number 9 of Fabian Schiller, will come back towards him later on in the race.
Working an eye as well on Jelly Beelan. He will certainly be keen to make amends for what was, well, a very disappointing day indeed for that team.
The glowing carbon brakes on the front of Fabian Schiller's car. Now Fran Ruder, his teammate, is side by side with the 5 machine of Alberto Battista. So another place gained there, and that's for 9th spot for Fran Ruder. And Dennis Anderson is next up, very busy down at the source, and Christophe Amon is fighting away with Davide Roda there. Mendes is through, and Roda's all over the curbs on the exit. So that means that Dennis Anderson gets a place back again, I think.
He does.
To 7th place for high class racing. Very quick through Eau Rouge, up over the top and Radion. Mendes has got ahead of Christophe Amon. Oh, sorry, he was already ahead of him, rather. 5th place for Mendes, Amon 6th, Roda 7th, and then Dennis Anderson in the blue and white car is in 8th place. But here comes Fran Ruder, overlapping the Oregon car. He can't get by Dennis Anderson, though, at Les Combes. It was pretty close. New rear end on Fran Ruder's car as well, so that doesn't quite match the other Mark VDS paintwork.
Busy in the midfield here, and certainly you've got drivers here that can see the opportunity this early in the race, with the cars lapping close together to take an advantage, and plenty of positional change from positions 5 down through to 10, and more to come. As now we've got Fran Ruder with Dennis Anderson. And looking for a way by. Meantime, a little further up the field, Christophe Amon.
This is at Fagnes, or Piff Paff as it's colloquially called, and they power their way out of that corner down towards Campos, the old Stavelot, now called Curve Paul Frere, and on towards Blanchimont. And be rest assured you're missing nothing at the front, because Fabian Schiller has extended his gap now to 1.7 seconds over Fred Blomstedt. Jelly Beelan remains in 3rd position, but getting a good run on Dennis Anderson is Fran Ruder. Now there's an opportunity as they work their way through Blanchimont at the end of the lap into the chicane to outbrake your opponent. So Dennis Anderson is first on the list. He needs to be careful to get the car stopped and not run into the back of Christophe Amon. Meanwhile, Anderson trying to move around the outside of Amon. They're both being slowed up here, which might play into the hands nicely of the young Spaniard Fran Ruder. There's a spin though further back, and that was the Roda car, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, with Baptista going through. So Davide Roda spins there. Not sure whether that's as a result of contact. Meanwhile, Fran Ruder up alongside Dennis Anderson, gives him a shoulder barge, but he is through out of La Source.
He might do the double here, because he's got a good run down towards Eau Rouge and through to Radion. If he can launch himself through that epic series of corners here, might just get the better run down the Kemmel Straight. Don't think he's quite close enough, though.
Let's have a look at this moment for Roda, who loses it entirely on his own. And actually Baptista, Adalberto Baptista, reacted brilliantly well there, so as not to make contact with his teammate, dodge out of line. Speaking of which, here comes Fran Ruder alongside Amon. Yeah, great move at the end of the Kemmel Straight, utilising the drag from Amon's car and through at Les Combes. So Fran Ruder up to 6th position now from, remember, 13th spot on the grid.
2 places in 4 corners then for Fran Ruder. That rates as a pretty good lap in anybody's book. Meantime, his teammate at the front is getting away. It's 1.6 seconds is the gap. Blomstedt too is drawing away from Jelly Beelan, and drawing away reasonably quickly.
Philippe Bourgeois has been spotted leaving the track, pushing the track limits, that is, and crossing the white line a few too many times, so he's got a warning, but nothing more severe as we stand. And there is confirmation of that warning on your screen. There is the 2nd place car of Swede Fredrik Blomstedt for R.S. GP.
Now behind this pair, Jelly Beelan is falling into the clutches of Miguel Ramos. And there's Ramos there, the Vodafone backed dark blue car. Jelly Beelan there, there's Ramos. that gap under half a second.
Yeah, Bielan, of course, has made the very, very skittish under braking there. Just caught a bump on the approach to the chicane, and the car hopped up into the air as it was on the brakes. Jelle Bielan did well to control that, and the gap's also coming down between Fran Rude and Andres Mendes. Mendes, a peculiar line into the second portion of the chicane, almost defending from Fran Rude, but he wasn't quite close enough in order to do that.
Close enough here that if he gets the run now, he's going to get this place into or through La Source. Goes around the outside. We'll try the cutback now, and should get the better run down the hill. Might well be able to do it right here, and has done.
So this is slightly the wrong line for Eau Rouge, but as long as he can get ahead on the run down past the support pits, but this is going to be dangerous. Oh, he's just about done it. Now, this isn't the ideal approach to Radion corner, but he's made it work and keeps the car within the white lines. And meanwhile, here comes Christophe Hamon, who's got a great run on Andres Mendez. So the yellow car looking to try and get by the Oregon machine. Meanwhile, first place Fabian Schiller. Away in the distance, Fred Blomstedt, and it's a new fastest lap for Schiller, in fact, a 2:16.2 for the German.
Fran Rude there demonstrating you can use every gram of downforce through Eau Rouge if you get that line right and you've got the brave pills taken.
And Christophe Hamon did make that move stick, by the way, on Mendes. So Hamon now running in 6th position behind 5th place Rude.
And looking at risk at the moment from Dennis Anderson behind as well. So Dennis Anderson beginning to square up to have a look at what he can do about Mendes.
In the background, the next of the Oregon cars is Baptista, with Philippe Asbrook in the 17 car, needing to be careful with his lines. Philippe Bourgeois is the guy with the warning flag so far. We haven't seen anything, as I say, more severe than that just yet, but we'll keep our eyes peeled on the bottom of the timing screen. I've just preempted that. 10-second time penalty now for Philippe Bourgeois because of the track limits issue, and there is confirmation of that. So crossing the white line, not exactly sure on which part of the track, could be into the final chicane. We've seen several offenders push it a bit too hard into this portion of the track across the weekend, but also at Radion it's easy to do that, and at Blanchimont too. Gap between the leaders as Schiller goes over the line is 2.7 seconds, by the way. Schiller to Blomstedt. Bielan and Ramos absolutely together though over the line, and also together. Oh, Dennis Anderson almost smelling the opportunity to get by Mendes, has unfortunately made a mistake. And can everyone avoid him? Yes, they can, but it got pretty narrow there, and he is able to rejoin the track. Sadly, all the hard work that he has put in to get from 14th position up to just behind Andres Mendes, thrown away.
Tiny error, and just trying a little too hard there. You're right, John, he could see the opportunity ahead. I think he could sense that Mendes was a little rattled by a poor lap last time, and I'm afraid threw away all that hard work. So a bad weekend for Dennis Anderson. Gets worse again.
There's obviously been a clash between Philippe Bourgeois and Jeroen Schothorst further down the order, because that's going to be investigated after the race. Didn't see that on our screens. And there is the 17 car of Bourgeois fighting away with Carmen Jorda for 10th position. Jorda in the yellow and black car. They're at Les Combes now.
Not in reality, of course, because he's going to be looking to get by and do what he can about offsetting that 10-second penalty.
Yes,
his real race position will effectively be 10 seconds further back, which will put him to the back of the field, I think. It will at the moment, but we've seen these things change before, these races.
In fact, though, Carmen Jorda is also under investigation for a potential overtake in the yellow flag area, and
missed the chicane
as well at the end of a lap. Right, so potentially both those cars we just caught a glimpse of, the 6 and the 17, have penalties hanging over them. 13, or just under 14 minutes now of the race still to go, plus the extra lap. This is Jeroen Schothorst and Dennis Anderson, a recovering Anderson after that spin at the chicane. So he's setting his sights on the 21 car, trying to make the best of a bad weekend up until this point. 13.5 minutes to go, and they're now at the right-hander Curve Paul Frere, heading for Blanchimont. Schiller still leads, 3 seconds now the margin back to Fred Blomstedt.
Easy overtake there,
indeed,
up the inside. Had the better speed, and I suspect that Schotter's just let that one happen.
Behind Chotos, by the way, Davide Roda, after his spin, which happened just about here on the exit of the chicane a few laps ago.
Another twitch there from Davide Roda.
Roda's teammate in the foreground here is Adalberto Baptista, fighting with Philippe Asbrook, Carmen Jorda and Philippe Bourgeois. The third and fourth cars, rather, in that sequence are being looked at for different infringements. And also the Jeroen Chotos car, number 21, having been involved in some kind of incident with Bourgeois, who gets a good run this time on Carmen Jorda. Not a great deal of defence there from the young Spaniard, and she didn't get a great run, I don't think, through Eau Rouge and Radion corner, so couldn't hold back the 17 machine. Also on the move potentially is Philippe Asbrook in that white and blue R.S. GP car. Couldn't get an overlap though with Adalberto Baptista.
Looking to see whether or not an error could be forced there. There was no way through though.
Down the hill towards Bruxelles comes the fight for 8th position. Baptista, Asbrook, Bourgeois and now Jorda. Swinging from the left-hand side of the track to the right to set the cars up for turn 9, Speaker's Corner. Race leader still Fabian Schiller. 2.8 seconds is the gap back to Swede Fred Blomstedt.
Has stopped the rot though there.
Yes.
And it's going to be a drive-through penalty, by the way, for Carmen Jorda for the earlier infringement. So she is going to drop further back down the order. Back of the field, I'm afraid, for the number 6 once that drive-through is taken. And car 17 also is going to get a drive-through penalty. So a 10-second time penalty and a drive-through for 17.
Yeah, that's after Bourgeois judged to cause a collision with Jeroen Schothorst. We have yet to see that incident, but clearly it's been reviewed by race control. They have access to all sorts of CCTV coverage around the circuit and have obviously been able to watch that incident over and over again and judge that the driver of number 17, Philippe Bourgeois, is at fault. So we will see that car, the Duquesne engineering machine, number 17, it's about to make a move here on the number 3 into the chicane, but Philippe Asbrook is able to stick the elbows out and keep Bourgeois behind.
Oh, no, spin.
And that's
Carmen Jorda.
Yeah, Carmen Jorda spins out of the chicane. Oh, needs to be careful as she rejoins as well. Davide Roda did well there. Of course, he was the victim earlier on spinning, and it was his teammate that needed to avoid. Well, this time the shoe was on the other foot, and Jorda spinning.
Took a bit of curb.
Yes, a bit too much curb, and as she accelerated, one wheel was on the curb, one was on the tarmac, and the car took a while to settle. And Davide Roda had to get out of the throttle there, just as his teammate needed to do to avoid his very spin.
I don't think Carmen Jorda has got that car moving again.
Okay.
There's still yellow flags at turn 18.
And yes, she has yet to complete lap 6, so that's a good call. Philippe Asbrook trying to be late on the brakes here around the outside of Baptista, and a great move there. A very similar one to the Peter Schothorst move that we saw a couple of times in the Endurance Trophy yesterday, and off onto the grass there goes the Baptista car. So lost another place to Philippe Bourgeois, and here comes Dennis Anderson in the high-class racing car as well to try and gain a spot. I was a little worried there that Adalberto Baptista was going to be moved from one side of the track right to the other then, and there was a tyre wall getting rather close to the car, but thankfully he got it all set up again.
Gathered up, looks like Dennis Anderson was looking at a run up the inside into Pouan, but that's what can happen when you start to lose your rhythm. Remember, these are not professional drivers, and sometimes that skill set can, at times of stress, just desert them a little.
And now Carmen Jorda is under investigation for a dangerous manoeuvre. That has to be the recovery after the spin, when she drove right into the path of Davide Roda, and
still not moved.
We still haven't seen her complete lap 6, I'm afraid. So this is a race to forget for her. This was the moment for Adalberto Baptista, off onto the curb and the grass and the gravel. And yeah, that was my slight concern as the car shot back across the track, that he would be able to get it stopped in time on the other side of the track to driver's right, but he did, and he continues on. Baptista has slipped to 10th place though after that moment, Really good middle sector on that lap for Franruda, better than anybody else in the race. Sadly, he is still 17 seconds adrift of his teammate who leads the race, Fabian Schiller. This is a nice little battle though for third position. Jelle Bielen adjusting the mirror, it looked like, as they headed through Radion there. He's got Miguel Ramos, the Portuguese, all over his rear wing, and Jelle Bielen needing to defend to the inside of Lecombe as they head into the braking area. Certainly partly alongside was Miguel Ramos, but not enough to swoop around the outside at the first part of Lecombe.
We'll keep an eye on Franruda though. That was a good defensive move. Into the pits comes this is the drive-through, isn't it, for number 17. Keep an eye on that gap, Franruda, on Miguel Ramos. About under 5 seconds now, and just under 8 minutes plus the lap to go. At the current rate of closing, that is doable.
Third place fight out of Speaker's Corner, down the hill towards Pouhon. In the background, Franruda, who is motoring on now into some clean air. And here is Jeroen Schothorst in the 21 behind Adalberto Baptista, who is recovering after that rallycross moment out of Lecombe. Much cleaner line through there this time. Davide Roda is loitering in the distance as well, trying to get involved in this fight for 10th place. Through Bruxelles goes the pink, yellow and green car, the colours of Oregon team, and he's a little bit wide on the exit of turn 9 as well. Miguel Ramos this time a bit further adrift from Jelle Bielen. Is that gap going to come down through the left-hander at Blanchimont? No, Bielen is stretching his legs a touch now, so where was that time lost? 1.4 seconds the gap at the end of lap 5. Well, it's come down considerably since then into the chicane. Obviously those two cars bunch up again as there's the recovery of Carmen Jorda's machine. Schoda's stopped on our screen, and that is quite right. She obviously got the car pointed in the right direction after the spin. Nearly cleaned out Davide Roda though in the process, and has another potential penalty heading her way. That might be enforced in the next round though at Estoril, because clearly her car is now retired. 10th place, Baptista versus Schothorst, Oregon team versus Equipe Verschure, and over the top of Radion Corner go the two cars scrapping for third and fourth position. Jelle Bielen again to the right hand side of the circuit. Franruda appears at the start of the Kemmel Straight. Now is Miguel Ramos fully alongside? No, he's not.
You can see there Jelle Bielen looking to his left and almost gave a wave, didn't he?
Yeah.
It worked last time, it'll work again this time. I've got the legs on Miguel Ramos. It's a fine battle this, but it is drawing Franruda back towards him. Now under 4 seconds the gap. 5.5 minutes to go. He's going to be with these guys within the next 2 or 3 laps.
Adalberto Baptista's got back in front of Jeroen Schothorst, by the way. So the Oregon car with the green door mirrors now in front of this Equipe Verschure machine. Driven brilliantly well yesterday by Peter Schothorst. We'll see Peter back at the wheel of the 21 later today in the Pro Solo race. Up to Lecombe goes the fight for 10th position then, with Baptista ahead of Schothorst, Davide Roda in the background. Fabian Schiller and Fred Blomstedt still at the head of the order. This is lap 9, 2.9 seconds is the gap between Fabian and Frederick.
They're trading sector times almost to the thousandth at the moment. Fred Blomstedt able to hold that gap, but not able to make any meaningful impact into it just at the moment.
Schiller again catching that bump, not in the ideal spot in the braking area for the chicane. Jelle Bielen had a big old moment and a big wiggle a few laps ago across there as well.
2.8 seconds the gap. Took a 10th out of the leader that time, Fred Blomstedt, but he's going to run out of time at that rate of closing very rapidly. 4 minutes to go plus the lap. Schiller from Blomstedt, and Jelle Bielen is a further 10 seconds back from that pair, with Miguel Ramos still very much in contention for that third place, and Franruda continuing to scythe into the gap that they've got. That gap now back from Ramos is just 2 seconds, in fact less than 2 seconds.
teeth-chattering run for Fred Blomstedt through Eau Rouge that time, and he had to have a little bit of a second go at Les Combes there. 2 bites of the cherry as the car started to step away from him from the rear through the first bit of Les Combes. Clean exit though, and here is the number 3 car of Philippe Asbrook. He's got probably about 6 or 7 car lengths on the car of Adalberto Baptista, and Jeroen Schothorst, who's right with Baptista once more. So that gap has started to grow. This is for 10th place. Baptista and Schothorst tries to the left, now he tries to the right, very close to the pit wall of the support paddock, up and over the top of Radion. And down towards the Kemmel Straight they go, but this time it's been a better exit for Baptista. In the background, Davide Roda just can't get close enough to these guys to be involved in the 10th place fight. 2 minutes and 45 seconds to try and do that. Through Les Combes goes the 10th place fight, but Fabian Schiller serenely pushes on.
Well, actually, first part of that lap, the gap closed a little, but Fred Blomstedt had a poor middle sector. That's put the gap out now to 3.5 seconds. There's just 2 minutes to go, plus the extra lap, of course.
Yeah, spectacular first sector on that lap for Fred Blomstedt, but he didn't back it up with a good middle sector.
But behind this duo, there is now a almost nose-to-tail trio. 1.7 seconds the gap between 3rd, 4th and 5th. Still in the order, Jelly Beelan, Miguel Ramos, Ren Raider. Raider now is under a second and a half. This is that battle, and Raider now looking for a way past Ramos. Under 2 minutes to go.
So this lap and one more, I reckon. As the leaders crossed the line, there were 2 minutes on the clock, and they're generally doing 2:17, 2:18 second laps. So down the hill towards Eau Rouge goes this fight for now 4th position, as Jelly Beelan starts to really concrete that 3rd place finishing spot. But is he slow out of Eau Rouge? That gap starting to be bridged now by Miguel Ramos, and of course he's bringing Fran Reda with him too. So down towards the Kemmel Straight, no need for Jelly Beelan to defend, as we've seen him do on a couple of occasions at the end of the straight. At Les Combes though, with 3 cars absolutely together here for 3rd, 4th and 5th positions.
Single second, 3 cars, 2 laps, including the one that they're on, to determine who occupies the last step of the podium. You're absolutely right, that was a poor first sector from Jelly Beelan. That's allowed the other 2 cars to get back with him.
Adalberto Baptista virtually stopped at the source as he then applied the power and the rear end stepped out. I thought that might mean an opportunity for Jeroen Schothorst, but he equally had not a great exit out of the source corner. So it's as you were. Fabian Schiller though, who started this race with an 11-point lead over Fran Ruda, will extend that margin at the top of the championship. Fred Blomstedt will close up on Fred Ruda.
No trouble.
Fran Ruda. Oh no. Maybe that's not the case then for Fred Blomstedt, who is stopped out on the circuit. Marshall's then over the wall to help him, and all of a sudden the car bursts back into life. Now, where was that? Between Pouin and Fagnes, corner for Fred Blomstedt, and that has allowed Jelly Beelan, Miguel Ramos and Fran Ruda to get by Fred Blomstedt. So at exactly the moment in the race where I choose to say that Blomstedt will extend or close in on Fran Ruda in the championship, that is not going to be the case. Commentators curse or what? And Blomstedt has rejoined in what looks like 5th.
Yes.
Did he get going again before Christophe Amon?
Yes, he did.
And now there is a concern as to whether that problem will strike again, or was it a spin that he was recovering from? We didn't see the start of the incident. The clock now is at 0, so we have the extra lap, and the race leader, Fabian Schiller, is already onto that. But this is the fight now for 2nd position. Jelly Beelan, Miguel Ramos in 3rd, bumping and boring over the curbs, and this will provide an opportunity for Fran Reda, who gets a good exit out of La Source. The problem is the next corner's a left-hander at Eau Rouge, and in fact it's a good exit from Miguel Ramos to defend that place, 3rd position.
It cost Fred Blomstedt, by the way, whatever happened there, cost him 20 seconds.
That is a real shame for Fred Blomstedt, who had an opportunity to close in on certainly 2nd place in the championship. Fran Ruda will have enjoyed driving past him, knowing that he's going to get more points from this race than his opponent, who appears now at the start of the Kemmel Straight. Final lap then of this Spa-Francorchamps circuit, 7 kilometres, 4.3 miles, and at turn 9 there is the race leader. He could be forgiven for thinking he's the only car in the race right now, because there is nobody to fight with for Fabian Schiller, but he will take that every day of the week.
14 seconds to the good now. And just at the point I was about to say, it looked like Fred Blomstedt had found something a little extra and had closed that gap a little. Then we saw the number 2 car stationary on track.
We still don't know entirely what happened with the number 2 car. The marshals were quickly down to his aid, but the car then just fired back into life, and he seems to be back on it. Last lap around, well, can't tell you at the moment, because we know that he lost around about 20 seconds on lap 11, but he's not lost any further places. Still running in 5th place ahead of Christophe Amon and behind Fran Ruder. But Fabian Schiller is at Blanchimont, just the chicane now to negotiate at the bus stop, and it'll be another win for Fabian Schiller. So 2 out of 2 effectively for the German this weekend, having won the first half of the endurance race yesterday, and it is an AM sprint race victory for Fabian Schiller. 50 points puts him in a great position heading to Portugal. The second place battle though is still on, and Miguel Ramos has gone too deep into the corner. Fran Ruder does exactly the same thing though, so he's not able to capitalise on that. Jelle Bielen then with a slightly surprising second place because of the problems for Fred Blomstedt. Miguel Ramos is home in 3rd position, and Fran Ruder, pushing it all the way there, comes home in 4th.
Miguel Ramos just gathered that back up, didn't it? Looked like he was about to lose the car, but just gathered it back up. And Fran Ruder, I think, was so surprised by that, he didn't give himself the line to take advantage.
Almost went off in sympathy, didn't he? And thought for the man we've just seen cross the line, Fred Blomstedt, who thought he was on course for 2nd position. It's a 5th place finish in the end, and for that you get 10 points as opposed to the 18 that he was in line for. And Fran Ruder actually able to gain a couple of points on Blomstedt. So the top 3 will remain the same in the championship. Miguel Ramos will have gained a little bit of ground on Fran Ruder. Ramos was away back behind Schiller, Ruder and Blomstedt in the championship. But Fabian Schiller jumps up to 178 points now, and will take some stopping. There is a replay of... Now, was that another spin for Dennis Anderson, or was that a replay from a while ago? He certainly had a moment there. No, he spun on the grass as well there.
Lost 2 places, 3
I think
places.
That was another spin, unfortunately,
right at the end of the race.
Dennis Anderson, yes.
Dropped from 8th down to 11th, right at the death, I'm afraid. So it's not been a great weekend for Dennis Anderson, has it?
That's not been a great corner for him either. 2 spins in that race between the 2 elements of the chicane at the end of the lap. High fives, though, at Marc VDS.
Hug for Dad, Andy Schiller. And then greeted by the team. They'll be delighted with that.
Especially after the bad luck yesterday with Marcus Paltela and the puncture as a result of contact. So 12 laps done for Fabian Schiller, winning the race by 12.5 seconds from Jelle Bielen in 2nd, Miguel Ramos and Fran Ruder. You could have thrown a blanket over those 3 cars at the finish. Frederic Blomstedt, a spin, or maybe the car expiring briefly and needed not quite a push start, but a Control-Alt-Delete for that car to then be restarted and finish in 5th position. He finishes ahead of Christophe Amon. Andres Mendes, 7th place. Philippe Asbrook finishing in 8th position ahead of Adalberto Baptista and Jeroen Schottors. Dennis Anderson, after that 2nd spin, coming home in 11th ahead of Davide Roda and Philippe Bourgeois after a drive-through penalty. There are the 3 cars then, all in the Parc Fermé area. Fabian Schiller quickly out of the car, congratulated by the team, and we can now catch up with Fabian, who will be speaking to Julien.
Fabian Schiller, difficult weekend for you at Paul Ricard, but you've bounced back very, very nicely with a perfect one here, 2 wins at Spa-Francorchamps.
Yeah, it was for us up until now a pretty good weekend. Apart of Marcus, he struggled a little bit in quali. He had a small problem with the car there, but for me it was all good. I had pole position. I won both races now. I won my part of the race yesterday, but it was a big shame we couldn't take the win in the endurance race as well, because some competitors were like a little unfair, but otherwise I think we all did a good job. I think we won the championship now by points, so I think we can be happy with what we achieved. And first year in the championship, the race was quite good for me here as well, and I'm happy.
If my math are correct, sorry, you're only 24 points ahead of Fran Reda, so you still need 1 point to seal the title. How do you approach the finale in Estoril next month?
Yeah, I think because we have this one result cut out in the championship, I get my 0 cut out from Paul Ricard, and he get a result out because he didn't have a 0, so he gets points cutted away. So I think that's the reason why I'm the champion. But anyway, I think we did a good job, and we bounced back quite good from the difficult weekend we had in Paul Ricard. And yeah, I'm happy. Everyone in the team is happy, I think, so good.
Thank you very much, Fabian. We'll let you into the podium.
Racing drivers can do hard sums when it counts.
At high speed as well, yes.
That was the perfect response.
I mean, that just shows what a quiet race he had, because he was able to do the mental arithmetic at the same time. Carry the 1.
Minus 0
I think I've got it, you know. Yeah. No, what he refers to is the endurance race at Paul Ricard, where he didn't finish. So that's his drop score, effectively. So 178 points is the points that he will be able to carry with that drop score incorporated to Estoril. And Fran Reda has to drop 6 points after his result yesterday here at Spa. So that's the reason why the difference of 24 points is extended to 30 points, and therefore Fabian Schiller uncatchable in the AM Championship. So congratulations to him. What a way to win it as well. A very dominant performance around Spa-Francorchamps. It was a busy race in the early stages though. Dennis Anderson trying a move on the number 5 car and not quite well, he did come off actually out of Bruxelles. A good move on Adalberto Baptista. Then there was a spin for Davide Roda. Baptista reacting well, his teammate right behind. Came so close to just clouting the wall there as he rejoined. That was the first spin for Dennis Anderson at the chicane. And remaining on the track, later on, we may well see the spin that saw him go off onto the grass. This was a spin for Carmen Jorda, and the rejoin here, not that clever, right into the path of Davide Roda, who had to slam on the anchors. Baptista with a rallycross moment out of Le Com corner, and moving from driver's left to driver's right. And Fabian Schiller across the line to win the sprint race. He won the endurance, the first part of the endurance race yesterday, and will take the championship. Miguel Ramos too deep into the chicane, but Fran Reda almost doing exactly the same thing in sympathy, so it didn't change the order. Jelle Bielen across the line in the green car in second, third place to Ramos, and fourth place to Fran Reda. But Reda is just too far adrift now from this man, Fabian Schiller, to claw those points back. And nice to see that moment between Fabian and his father. The top 3 then will be brought out onto the podium. 3 bottles of champagne, as you can see, waiting at the front of that podium, and there are 3 very nice trophies as well about to be presented. This is the second race for the AM drivers. There's one more Renault Sport Trophy race to come. There's Franz Verschoor, though, who is very, very happy with his team.
He's something of a character, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
He was great fun yesterday.
So,
Jelle
Bielen in second position rather, and
we haven't seen Miguel Ramos.
Yeah, well, we haven't seen it. That's why I'm sounding slightly concerned that we don't have Miguel Ramos for whatever reason. But we have got Franz Verschoor, who will happily take the plaudits, and also a team representative from Team Mark VDS as well. And we will now hear the German national anthem. Caps back on. Fabian Schiller, Jelle Bielen, and a Miguel Ramos substitute with the sideways cap, Franz Verschoor, who runs the car for Miguel Ramos and his teammate.
I was about to say Miguel Ramos is looking rough, isn't he? But it is Franz Verschoor.
It is Franz Verschoor, who, well, it might be in a while since he's received a trophy. for driving capability, but managed the situation pretty well in yesterday's endurance race. The problem was that his car crossed the line on the road. Little did we know that it had been given a 15-second penalty, and in fact the places were changed around, giving the win on that occasion to Raoul Owens and Fred Blomstedt. But Blomstedt on course to stand where Jelle Bielen is right now with about a lap to go, but having a moment in that sprint race which saw him finish in 5th position in the end. Handshakes all round though for the 4 guys. They may well gather together on the top step of the podium in a moment as well.
Now, you should watch there's any young drivers watching, just watch the body language just two or three moments ago from Franz Verschoor, who zipped up his anorak.
Yeah.
Nice and tight, ready for the champagne shower. Excellent stuff.
Yeah, and there it goes. In fact, Jelle Bielen does not waste any time at all.
Utterly predictable.
Making sure that bottle is inserted down the back of the anorak of Franz Verschoor. Well, he seems pretty happy with it, in fairness. Yeah. And there is confirmation then. This is... Not sure whether that is with the drop scores
that's
incorporated.
Not with the drop scores, that says 24 points.
It does, 24 points, so that's without the drop score.
Because the drop score will be at the end of the season.
On 153 points, but as we say, he doesn't drop anything from that 153, and then 129 for Fran Ruder, but bear in mind he will lose 6 points of that. There are only 25 remaining on the table, so Fabian Schiller is absolutely correct. He takes the Renault Sport Trophy AM Championship for 2016. We probably should say provisionally at this stage, with 1 or 2 issues needing to be sorted out from that race, but none involving him, to my knowledge. A clean one. He got away from Frederick Blomstedt very early on in that race. And a fantastic performance from Fabian Schiller. We'll see how his teammate Marcus Paltela gets on in that very car, with the pro race still to come from here in Spa-Francorchamps. For the moment, though, from Graham Goodwin and Johnny Palmer, it's goodbye and join us later